Welcome back to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker, the weekly radio show that informs and educates you on how to buy or sell real estate with Barb Schlinker, the owner broker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of the program. Barb, I know many people ask you questions when they're getting ready to sell their homes. What are the top questions that home sellers should be asking before they put their home up for sale?
Well, Richard, I think a majority of the home sellers that I speak to, I ask them what's most important to them. And I don't always get the same answer, but I would say a large percentage of them want the most money that they can get, which makes sense, right? However, right now homes are taking longer to sell. And then we've got fewer buyers on the market, we've got higher inventory on the market. So the buyers, I think, are very savvy about what's out there in their price range. They're very well educated. And they're reaching out to me many times and asking questions about some of my properties and trying to get an opportunity to get in and buy it. Especially if it's priced right. So if it's not priced right, it's kind of a ho hum and it's not moving the bar. One of the ones I looked at last night, it was priced okay, but they had some really bad pictures. Whoever they hired to market really didn't know what he was doing. The couple of the photos that he put out there online were what I thought buyer repellent photos. It's like, why are you doing that? So I don't think people, the problem is in the real estate industry, it's basically 1 month of school to be a real estate broker. And there's no standardization on what real estate agents do and what they bring to the table. I was speaking with one yesterday and he had been interviewing agents. And I asked him, I said, did any of these other agents go over any of this stuff with you? And he goes, no. So a lot of people just show up and go, your house is worth X, here, sign here, and let me get it on the market. They don't, some do, but some don't actually give them an idea of what they could expect. So right now, it's instead of a seller's market, it's more of a buyer's market. And that means to get your house sold and get the most money, you have to present the home as being the best available home on the market. And that takes pricing it right, having it prepared properly, having it promoted properly, and most of all, hiring the right agent that can get the job done. So let's kind of talk about some questions that should be asked. One of them is, how do I prepare my home before I sell it? And we get this question all the time, and they want to know, so should I fix this? Should I replace that? Some of the questions are really interesting, like, should I put in a tankless water heater, or should I give a allowance for my tired, worn carpet? And I will tell you, things like flooring, it's a mistake not to make it fresh unless you've really discounted the price of the home. Because, in fact, I was looking at one last night online that it looked like a good house in a good area, but it was very obvious that the carpet was stained and needed restretching and it needed replacing. And the house sold for probably 5 times less than what it would have cost to replace the carpet. So some sellers make a mistake and just say, well, I'll just sell it as is. I'm not going to do any updating. And that's fine if they want to do that. But it would have cost only 5,000 to sell the carpet. I'm sorry, it would have cost only 5,000 to replace the carpet, but they dropped the price by about 25 or 30,000 to get it sold. So you really need people that understand the market, that are selling homes all the time. So part of what we do is when we come out, we actually take a look at the home, give you good ideas on what to do, what not to do to get the house ready for sale, give you a great idea what the home will sell for and how much you'll put in your pocket when it sells. And I'd say one of the top questions, of course, that we get is, what is my house worth? Well, what your house is worth is what a buyer is willing to pay. It's not what the agent says it's worth. It's not what Zillow says it's worth. It's not what the seller says it's worth. And some people will look at the improvements that they put in the home and add that to the price. And if the improvement is truly an upgrade, like it goes from Formica counters to granite, and granite is the standard for the neighborhood, it may not be an upgrade. It might just be a standard of what's expected. However, if you're in a neighborhood that doesn't normally have granite, it might be an over upgrade. So that's why you need the advice of somebody that does this all the time and actually sells homes all the time. But at the end of the day, the market decides what it will sell for. And what that is what the buyer is willing to pay. So, we can give you a good idea what similar homes have sold for. We also take a look at what's available, because the buyers don't care too much about historic sales. They need that for the appraisal. But what they care about is, what can I get right now in my price range? So that's what we do, is we sit down and give you very empirical data. We give you a good idea on what other homes are selling for, whether or not they had to lower the price or pay some buyer closing cost. We will show them our cash offers for their home, and we'll also show them what's getting contracts right now, because that's an indication of what the market's willing to pay at this time. Just last weekend, we had over 35 people. Actually, it was 37 people in the 1 hour open house. We got 2 offers, and it sold for asking price. So when you do that and you get it sold quickly, 13 times faster than the average agent, that means it was priced realistically for a reason. So another question we get, and it's a good question, is how long will it take for my house to sell? So if it's priced on target, it shouldn't take more than 10 to 14 days. But if it's a little bit overpriced, the market's going to tell you right away, based on the volume of showings, based on the calls, based on the interest, whether or not the market sees that as value. Okay. And sometimes you might get an offer you don't like, and that's okay. If you're getting offers, it's good. It means you're kind of in the wheelhouse, and another buyer will come along. So don't worry about it. And right now, 40 to 50% of home sellers are actually reducing their price just to get a buyer. So if we're seeing a lot of price reductions, then that's obviously not the right price. It's not what the market's willing to pay. So you have to be really careful when you interview agents. There are some agents that will say, oh, I can get you $1 million, but the reality is the market won't do it, right? And then your house sits on the market. It gets kind of tired and seen by everybody, and buyers really won't either come look at it, or they won't make offers. Sometimes if you're getting views and no offers, that either means when they get to the house, you have a condition issue, or it's just a little bit overpriced. So in general, the rules of thumb about that if you are on the market, if you've got 10 showings and no offers, you're too high. If you go 10 days without any showings, you're too high. And if you're getting offers, then that's a good sign. It might just be another one. Wait for the right one if that's not the one that you want. Some buyers will come to you and ask you to reserve your house for them while they wait for their home to sell. That's called a sale contingency, and it could work out, but it's a big risk for most home sellers, because we have to tell the local MLS that you've accepted a contract, which will effectively stop other agents from showing, because the way those are marked in the system, it looks on other websites as to the buyers as if it's unavailable. So it's not a great idea for most home sellers. So you'll have basically a loss of certainty as far as when you will actually get to the finish line. We have systems in place. We can provide cash offers for pretty much any address in the country, so we can solve that problem. Now, if the person buying your home has a contract on their home, it's more likely to go through than not. So that's a little bit less of a risk than accepting a contingency. You wouldn't believe how many agents come to me and go, will you accept a contract contingent on my buyer's house selling, but it's not on the market yet? And so I asked one agent a few months ago, I said, okay, well, where are you going to price that home? And she goes, well, I don't know, but it has granite. And it turned out The seller accepted their contingent contract, and 10 days later, her home goes on the market and it's way overpriced, like by 150,000. That thing wasn't going to sell while we were still young. So we can put protections in place. In that case, the seller wanted to accept that offer, and if they do, then that's fine. But fortunately, the deal blew up over inspection, and we were able to get a different buyer in there that actually could be performed. And then another good question is, what about staging? Is that really important? Absolutely. How you present a home online could be the difference between buyers wanting to come see it or not. So it's critical. My name is Barb Schlinker. I am the broker owner of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty and the host of this show, Your Real Estate Voice. And we're talking about the top questions that you should consider asking when you're interviewing agents. And next up, we're going to talk about a couple of more questions. So if you are thinking of making a move, give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
Barb, we're discussing the top questions that a home seller should ask when they're getting ready to sell their home. Everyone knows I've been recommending you for years. Tell us about some of the key questions a home seller should ask a real estate agent during that interview, and how many should they interview?
It's a great question, and I think in general, if you understand the statistical data about agents, I think in Colorado, there's around 40,000. Along the Pikes Peak region, there's about 6,300, maybe 35,000 in Denver. 87% of the agents get out of the business every 5 years. And 81% of them sell 3 or less homes per year. So that would be one of the questions. How many homes do you sell in a year? How many have you sold in the last few years? And then another good question is, why should we pick you over the other choices? That's a good question. But how much time does a seller need to spend interviewing agents? It's really up to them. They should feel comfortable. It's one of their largest assets. In general, I would say 3 is probably a really good number. And if you could be happy with the first one and cancel the other 2 appointments. There's nothing wrong with that either. However, if it were me, knowing what I know, I would look at all the options and then make the best decision that works for you. It's interesting. The National Association of Realtors says that a majority of the home sellers only talk to one. They just go to somebody they knew, somebody they're referred to, or maybe the person that sold them the house if they're still in business. So it depends on what the seller's preference is and kind of what their experience was previously with that agent. And then we sit down with our clients, we talk about value. Another good question is, how long of an agreement can I sign? And if I'm not happy, can I get out of that agreement? That's a really good question, because the way the state forms are designed, it's not very clear. In fact, there's actually no promise of marketing that goes on in the state agreements. It's more about tying the agent to the seller. But there is a paragraph in there that says that if the agent promised something, either verbally or in writing, and they did not perform, that gives you grounds to terminate their agreement. There are some agents that will charge money for that, which is not good if it wasn't previously agreed to. You don't want that kind of relationship. You want somebody that really has your back and wants you to get to the finish line. So if you are thinking of making a move, we'd love to be one of the ones you interview. Give us a call, 719-301-3900, or go to barbhasthebuyers.com. Richard?
If you're listening to Your Real Estate Voice with Barb Schlinker of Your Home Sold Guaranteed Realty, and if you are thinking of making a move, simply call Barb at 719-301-3900 or visit barbhasthebuyers.com. And if you want a free report, the top 10 questions to ask before you hire a real estate agent, visit barbhasthebuyers.com. Go to the green button. It'll be in the upper right-hand corner. It says free reports. Click there. A short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing, is it worth having a buyer's agent here in Colorado? Barb has that answer.